And I think back on that time in 2008 and 2009, where there was a correction, the rental market got better, right? So, and just to give you a little framework on that, is that when people start losing their jobs, or people start having cash flow issues, or people are not, there is a recession that's going on, the people who were going to buy rent, right? So again, real estate in my mind makes so much sense, because where your 401k falls, where your stock portfolio falls, there's really nothing you can do but hang on for dear life. With real estate, instead of selling that particular unit that you were going to sell, now you can rent it and you can cash flow it.
All right, Carl, welcome back, man. Today we are talking all about real estate. We've been doing this financial literacy series, and today we're going a deep dive. We're going a deep dive on how to attain financial freedom through real estate, why you want to start building a real estate portfolio. Carl's going to give you the exact steps for how to start building your real estate portfolio, no matter how much money you got in the bank, no matter where you live in the country. So let's get dialed in. Carl, break us down the outline for today.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I think the first and foremost, the biggest step is why real estate, right? So there's a lot of vehicles out there that you can invest in, the stock market, Bitcoin, whatever it is that's your flavor. I want to break down why real estate. I want to break down why out of state. If you live in, obviously you can always do it in your backyard, but if you live someplace that you want to go out of state, like California, I don't do much investing here in California. I go out of state for my investments. So why that makes sense for me. I want to break down the entities that you need the legal entities that you need to put these real estate properties into, from a tax perspective, from a protection perspective. I want to talk a little bit about location. I want to talk about, what you can do from a planning perspective for like location. I want to talk about your partners, right? So if you think you're going to do this alone, you're in for a long road. So I want to talk about partners who you need to have on the ground in those locations where you're investing. And then I want to talk about some of the common mistakes that people make when they do earn their first deal, their second deal out of state. And then I want to talk about the last misconception is when you're a landlord that you're getting those 2:00 calls in the morning because of a clogged toilet. That's
how to automate this so
true.
you're not doing that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, let's go. Let's rock and roll. So why real estate?
Yeah, man. So why real estate, right? Everybody has a vehicle that they can invest in. To me, real estate is one of the age-old investment tools that more millionaires get rich in real estate because of the following reason. When you do an investment property, a lot of people miss 2 out of the 3 things, right? So most people focus in on, I buy a property for $100,000. I have $1,000 worth of expenses on that property, but I cash flow $500 a month on that property. They think that $500 is the only monetary value of that property, and that's just simply not true, right? So the other 2 components of that is that when you're having a rental portfolio, or if you having a property that's $100,000, that first year you get cash flow of the $6,000, but your property goes up in value every year, right? So the average value is 3 to 5%. So let's just make the math easy and say it's 5, right? So if your house was worth $100,000, now it's worth 105, right? Again, a lot of people don't understand that when your portfolio grows by 5%, your net worth grows by 5% on that investment portfolio. So now you're talking about $11,000 of actual money, right? Then what other people don't realize is that the person that you are renting it to or leasing it to is paying down your mortgage. So let's just say you do a traditional mortgage and you put down 20%. So now your loan or your mortgage is $80,000. Well, when that person is paying your principal and your interest, now that every year it's going down by $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever the cost is. So let's just say it's $2,000 every year. Your mortgage is getting smaller and smaller. So it goes from 80,000 to 78,000. That's again growth. So that one investment that you've made for, call it $100,000 home that you think you're only making 6% on, you're only making $6,000 on, is simply not true. You're actually making 12 or 13.
Because your appreciation is going up, your debt is being lower because someone else is paying that down, and so the equity, the value you have in that home or that real estate investment overall is going up. Just to recap that for everyone. Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So do we want to go into why you prefer out of state, or why not think about starting out of state right away?
Yeah. So if you live in a state where it's very expensive, right? So I live in the state of California. There's a lot of states out there that are very expensive to buy. And if you don't have a whole lot of money, you can't buy in California if you only have $10,000 in the bank. But that doesn't mean you can't buy. That doesn't mean you can't get in real estate. If you can take that $10,000 and go to other places, you can buy $100,000 home, and again go through that same analogy that I went through and start getting that cash flow. And the things that people sometimes miss in California, there's the taxes are pretty high, the insurance is pretty high. There's a lot of overhead that the property managements in California are high. Those things can really eat into your ROI if you're not careful. And by going out of state, you kind of can limit those things. So again, it's not necessarily that you have to go out of state, but you can't, if you don't have a whole lot of money and you want to get started in real estate, you can go and buy out of state.
And that's what we talk about today, Carl, because I think the fear of, oh, well, I don't know the systems, I don't know the teams that I need. You're saying, hey, it's actually possible for anyone, even if they only have 10, 20, 30K and not much real estate experience, to actually get started out of state?
Correct. Absolutely, man. Yeah. I mean, that's the way I got started. I mean, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit further. You need partners, obviously, and you need mentors, or you need to partner with, right, guys that have turnkey, properties that you can buy that are turnkey, that are already flipped. I mean, some of that is what we do, right? We flip them and we sell them to people. If we're selling it to an investor, the reality is that they probably won't have a whole lot of work to be done on them because the houses are essentially pretty new.
Awesome. I think that's going to be really helpful as we get into that today, man. Okay, cool. So listen, why real estate? Because again, like you can leverage that I mean, again, what you just talked about, if you only have 20K, heck, you could probably leverage that 3, potentially even 4 to 1. You have a $60,000, $80,000 asset that's now appreciating at 5% a year. So your net worth is growing that way. You're paying down your debt, right? So the more equity you have is growing.
Right. Someone else is paying down your debt.
Someone else is paying down your debt. Exactly. Yep. And now you say, okay, well, if you're in a market that you can't afford, well, it's actually possible to go look at other markets and start buying out of state. So then what's 100%. Next, Carl? If we're saying, okay, people are, they're in California, for example, or they're in their home market and they realize I can't afford what's right next to me. What's the first step then, man? Begin to get this set up.
Yeah. So location, man. I think the age old saying in real estate is location, 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 right? So start by looking at, where do you want to invest, right? Is it in the Midwest? Is it in the South? Is it on the East Coast? Is it on the West Coast? Is it in Phoenix? Is it in middle America? Start looking at where you want to invest. And there's a couple things that I like to look at when I look at a location, right? So is the infrastructure of the city, does that make sense to me? Right. So I look at jobs, right? Are jobs readily available in that community? I look at, is it a college town? Are there kids that are coming to that particular city to go to school? All of this you can find online, right? You can read articles about, your city or the city that you want to invest in. I also look for sports teams, right? So, do they have a professional basketball team, a professional baseball team, a football team? Because what that does is that Now you've got people that are coming into your states when their teams are traveling, and you could potentially there's a potential Airbnb market that's out there. I look at our companies coming to those cities, right? Are people moving from where it's expensive, maybe like San Francisco or New York, and they're moving to, kind of middle America. Again, our big jobs coming to that area. Those are the things that you can look at online and kind of make a determination of, is this a good location or not? And I think that is, again, it's missed because a lot of people say, well, what's in my backyard? Let me go right around the neighborhood, see what's for sale. And I'm saying, don't limit yourself to your neighborhood. Kind of look broad, because there are some cities that are up and coming that you can get in for a price point that you can afford and that can cash flow long term.
So as the rule of thumb for those, to just sum up what Carl just said, in terms of looking at a market, here's the things you want to look at: population growth, and all the things you talked about, sports team, companies, all those are signs of people wanting to come here. So you can Google, does this city, Frisco, Texas, have positive population growth? What is it over the last 5 years? Is it trending upward? Job growth, is it trending upward, right? We want to see positive rent growth, positive population growth. All of those things are good. And then the sports teams and stuff are indicators of that. Carl, let me ask you this. Is median income ever an issue that you will look at? Like, do you look at actually how many people live there and how much money they make? Is that factors that go into your market?
So my philosophy is I always want to go where 80% of the population can afford, right? So, because I'm always thinking about, I lived through, 2008, 2009, when we had a correction in real estate. And I came out unscathed because I was where 80% of the population can afford. If you're at the very top of the market, those are the homes that potentially had a very significant loss, right? Like, you can find out like where companies are moving to, where industries are going, what's happening. There was another neighborhood that had a hospital. They were doing research not market research, but they were doing research, and they had to bring all of these jobs in for research. Well, guess what? That neighborhood, the rents went up by 20%. Guess who bought some property there? Me, right? And again, it's not being a genius. It's just getting online and doing your research on the location.
Love it. Okay, man. So now the location's dialed in. What's next?
Partners, man. So if I would be remiss if I didn't say that I could not do any of this without my partners in these areas, right? So you have to figure out, again, once you dialed in on, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to do it, how I'm going to do it, what it looks like, you have to go there and you have to network and meet people and then start building out your team of people, right? And the first team is going to be your agent, right? So you need a real estate agent in the area that can put you on an email consistent flow so that you can get emails on, duplexes in this particular area, or I want 3 bedrooms, 2 baths in this particular area. I only want to go in, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, like whatever your criteria is, give that to your agent and they can give you that, those properties that come up on the MLS all the time, right? So that's the first thing, is finding that agent. And again, if once you do a couple deals, that agent then gives you the deals before they go on the MLS, right? So that's where you really want to have, or you're really going to have success, is you're going to get the deals before anybody else sees the deals, right? So first thing is find an agent. The second thing is finding, your general contractor that's in the area. Again, some of these homes that you may be buying, are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. You got to do $20,000 worth of work to them. So having a general contractor and having that general contractor have crews, you want to know everybody on their crew. You want to meet with them. You want to become their best friends, so that they can kind of help you, do any repairs on the property that you're buying.
Any tips on, vetting GCs, just because that's where I think a lot of this can, you pick a wrong general contractor, that's a quick way to lose your money. Any way to make sure, like, they're credible, They're, like just things that maybe you've learned in your process for someone who's finding and vetting GCs.
Yeah. So what I do from a vetting perspective is pretty thorough, right? So I will do the initial meetings, and I will find these guys either on Bigger Pockets, or I'll go to the network of real estate agents in that area, and they will give me a referral, and then I'll meet them, right? And once I meet them, I give them the test. I look at their scope of work. And right when we get to the end of where we're gonna do a deal, I hire a private investigator, right? And this private investigator, you can pay him $5,000, and he can tell you anything and everything that this person has ever done wrong in their entire life. That $5,000 has saved me millions, because you find out the true character of a person when you look into some of the things that they're doing. That you
Wow.
wouldn't have known by meeting them, right? So just to give you an example, there was a guy that we were getting ready to do a deal with, and it was a group of us, and he had credit card fraud, he had domestic violence on his record, he had been in jail for some other types of fraud. I would not have known had I not have did a background check on him and had my private investigator pull his information. This comes up, I step away from the deal, because I don't want to be involved with someone who is going to be have credit card fraud on their background. So those are, I would say those are the things that getting to know is almost like dating, right? You getting to know a person, but at the end of it all, and you feel really good about that person, hire someone, a private investigator, to pull their bank records to find out, the details of that person. Again,
I
it's
mean,
worth it.
it's an insurance policy is really what you're
Exactly.
doing. And $5,000 is not a lot if you're going to be working with this person on multiple deals, right? And I hope everyone's listening. You're not going to the market to do one deal. You want to
Right.
go to the market and do 10, 15, 50 deals. And
Yeah.
so, it is about building a team if you want to go and scale. If you're going to go do one deal,
Right.
listen, this is the Think Wealthy show, man. I want you to think wealthy,
Yeah.
right? Not think small,
Exactly.
think wealthy. And so we got to go there thinking about 50 shows. I
Yeah.
mean, 50 shows, 50
50 deals.
deals.
And Ellis, no, and I would be remiss to say, like, if you do it right, you can use the same money and do 50 deals, right? So you can go into a market, and I've done this before. You go into a market, you flip a house, let's just say you come up with $50,000 from somewhere, right? Either your 401k or your self-directed IRA or something, but you have $50,000. You go into a community, you do a deal. It costs you $50,000 to do that deal. The next year, you refinance, you pull your money out and go do the next deal, right? And so, and if you do it right, I'll give out my secret sauce. I mean, I don't care if you find the right lender that says, hey, we'll give you basically your money back after you flip this, based on the after value appreciation of the home. If you do the calculations right, you can pull out all of your money. And now you don't have any money out of pocket, and you're still cash flowing this deal. And then you go take that money and go buy the next house. You rinse and repeat that 10 times. I mean, and you only had $50,000. It's a pretty good, again, but I wouldn't know this if I didn't partner with guys who have done this before and can walk you through it. I would be remiss to say if I didn't come up with this myself. I had partners that helped me navigate that space.
Right. What Carl's referred to is what we call the burr method: the buy, the rehab, the rent, the refinance, and then repeat. I mean, that's really is what you're doing. You're buying something under value, you're rehabbing it to bring it up to value, you're renting it so you stabilize the property. That's when you can get good financing for the deal, 30 years, fixed interest. And then what Carl's saying, you wait, maybe you don't even have to wait, but let's say you wait however long it needs to wait for that property to appreciate, and now you can pull that money you had to put down on that deal, tax free, by the way, Carl,
Right.
because it's on,
Yes.
this is how real estate works. You're not paying taxes on that money you just pulled out. And you can
Right.
go take that same 50K, go buy your next deal. But guess what? You own two properties with that 50K, not one. So this is how this builds as you get started in this game.
Yeah, 100%. I think the other partnerships too, I mean, you have to have a good lender. And again, the lenders that are out there, I mean, it's like going through a pretty detailed examination, right? I mean, you have to come up with all your tax returns. You have to have all your your ducks in a row, but you do that one time and you partner with that lender multiple times. Then you don't have to do that. You do it one time. They know you, they know your scenario, they know your net worth, they know what you're doing. You go and then you can buy multiple deals at a time. And again, you don't have to then show all that you need to show because you just bought a deal, 3 months ago from the same lender. Right. So having a lender in place is a huge deal.
Yep, that's key. Anybody else on the team then?
So property management company, right? So, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later too, but, vetting out your property management company, those guys are keys to understanding the market. They know the market better than anybody else because they're actually dealing with the actual renters. They know how to put people in your place. They know what your place is valued at. It's very key to have a good property management company, and you do the same thing that you do with anybody, right? Or with the GC or your lender or whoever else you're partnering with. You meet them, you get to know them, you date them for a little bit, you find out, you find out the background on them using a PI or background check on their company.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's excellent. So to recap, important team members, start from the top.
Oh, you want me to recap?
Yeah, recap. Yeah. Start from the top.
So general contractor is one, agent, 2, lender, 3, property management company.
4. That's potentially a private investigator as the expected.
Well, my private investigator, he does all of my, and he's actually out of Boston, and he can investigate anybody in the country at any time. I give him a name and a birth date, and he'll tell me if you had a speeding ticket in college.
How much is that? How much does that cost, by the way?
$5,000.
$5,000.
Yeah, but again, you don't have. That's the complete package, right? Like if you want just the hey, is this guy a good guy or not? That's $1,000.
Yeah.
But when I'm going to do a deal, and again, I'm not going to do one deal, I'm going to do multiple deals. I want to know how much money he has in his account. I want to know what his cash flow looks like. I want to know what he does on a day-to-day basis. I want to know if this guy's a good guy. And look, and there's something that can be drawn when you look back at someone's, out of college from then to, where they are now. How did they do that? Did they have any defaults? Did they have any bankruptcies? Have they wronged anybody else? Do they have any lawsuits on them? My guy can pull all of that information. Again, that's $5,000. But if you want something cheaper, then it's $1,000.
And I think too, Carl, it's the mindset of I think most people try and kind of tiptoe their way into this world of investing, which is fine to some extent, but I think those who really do well say, I'm going to treat this like a real business.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come in and I'm not just going to do one deal. I want to do 50. And how do I get set up to do 50? Yeah. That's how you grow and scale. It's not coming in and saying, let me figure this out. No, you're going to commit. You want to build a business around this, treat it like a business, find partners you want to do relationships with for a long time. And so I think that's that mind shift of I'm doing one deal to, how do I become real wealthy from this? Yeah. Right. 100%. You could retire off of a few rentals, and maybe that's what you're listening to this show for. But if you want to build legacy wealth, figure out how to start multiplying this and doing multiple of these, like Carl's doing, like we're doing in apartment buildings. So awesome, man. Team is huge. So the 3 other categories we haven't chatted about was a legal entity, common mistakes, and then there was a third category as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So the legal entity is a big piece, right? So I mean, when you're dealing with people that you don't necessarily know, and they're renting from you, it's important to protect yourself, right? So you want to make sure that all of your rental portfolios, if possible, can be put into a legal entity. And LLC, an incorporate, a S corp, whatever it is that your tax advisor, instructs you to do, that's what you should do. What I do is I have all of mine in an LLC, and all of those and the LLCs are directly correlated to the city, right? So GLH LLC Houston, GLH LLC Indiana, GLH LLC Boston, and all of the deals that I do are in my LLC. And further, there is a huge tax advantage when you are operating this LLC like a business. And again, you should before you get into it, spend some time with your accountant to understand all of the tax benefits that come from it. But just to give you an example, if you make $100,000 and you're a W-2 employee, you're going to pay 30% tax. If you make $100,000 in rental income, you may not pay any tax, and it's a huge deal. Again, 30% on your money, that number continues to grow. Obviously, it becomes a very big deal.
Right. Absolutely. That's how you replace your W-2 income, right?
Exactly.
So you don't actually create a different LLC for each property.
I don't know. So within the LLC, I have what's called an umbrella policy that basically says under these, and depending, and I revisit this every year. If I buy more properties in that LLC, now it goes, instead of having a $5 million umbrella policy, now it maybe goes to a $10 million policy. And that basically says is if there's anything that goes wrong, anybody sues you in these properties in this city, that umbrella policy will then have, some coverage for yourself.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Common mistakes, man. So now we've kind of people, and maybe this is one of the first mistakes, again, not treating this like a business. I keep saying that. And I just want to say, like, well, that's one of the mistakes I see is not treating thinking like this as a business. That's what this is. That's what you really want to treat this as. What are some other common mistakes?
Yeah. So the biggest common mistake that I see, and when people come to me and say, how do I get started? And then I take them through this journey and I tell them what to do and I tell them to go find a property. They always come to me and say, well, I didn't really like the paint on the property, or I didn't really like the curb appeal, or it was too small. And the reality is that you're not living in the place, you're renting it, right? Like that's the point. That is the thing that people don't understand. They think like, well, I want this to be nice. Well, no, you want to focus on the return on your investment, not if the place has, a good curb appeal or the paint that is to your taste. You want to focus on the return on your investment. So a lot of times people get hung up on that and then they just don't do anything, right? I've got guys that I have been mentoring for years that don't have an investment property. And we've probably been talking about this for 10 years, right? So because they are still stuck on, well, I don't really like that area. Well, no, I didn't really like the store down the street. Who cares, right? I mean, the reality is that you want to focus on your return on investment, period.
Right.
So that is the common mistake that a lot of people make.
I always say you live where you want, you invest, where it cash flows, right?
Exactly.
Like if you follow that rule, if you invest in places where cash flows, that gives you the freedom to live in a place like San Diego, right? Or wherever you want to live. That's a good rule.
Yeah. So that is like the main common mistake that people make is that they can't get past seeing the property and saying, I don't like whatever it is about it, and they just can't get past that. And then the other common mistake is just, analysis paralysis, right? I mean, you've watched all the bigger pockets, you've done all your research, you've found the deals, you understand the 1%, 2% rule, you've done all that you need to do, but you still can't pull the trigger, right? I see that time and time again too, because either it's fear or I don't know what it is, honestly. But they just can't pull the trigger. So that's another common mistake that I see.
I always say, man, the hardest deal is the first deal. The hardest
Yeah.
deal is the first deal. And I do think it is that analysis paralysis. That's why I think having a good mentor, someone who's
Yes.
done this process with you, who's maybe in the market, we haven't added that to the team, Carl, but I would say when you go to the market, find out who are the other big players, who's
Mm-hmm.
already doing the type of deals that you want to do, who already owns a lot of these assets. See if maybe you could come and do a deal alongside of them. Invest money into one of their deals, learn the process, learn the type of assets they're buying, learn their underwriting, then go jump into it. And so, again, if you're struggling with analysis paralysis, go find the mentor that's
Right.
where you want to be
Yeah.
and freaking rip off and duplicate. I mean,
Yes.
this isn't,
Yes.
we're not innovating. We're not creating the wheel here in real estate.
No.
We're doing the same thing people have been doing for decades.
Decades.
Or centuries.
Yeah.
You could even say.
100%, man.
So,
Joint venture deals are I love. I mean, every one of my deals is joint venture, right? I am in. Actually, I take that back. The rental portfolios that I have is all mine. But when I'm flipping a house, all of those are joint ventures. I mean, I'm not doing any flips by myself. I'm always using someone else, and that to me is the way you can scale, right? Because now it's two heads versus one. It's two resources versus one. And just to give you more information on that, I'm the capital guy, and then I partner with guys who can contract, do the work, and get the house, buy the house, and get it back on the market. And I'm just bringing the capital to the table.
Right, that's huge. What was the last category here,
so
Carl?
the last category is property management company, right? So I think the biggest misconception of rental portfolios is that it's a headache. You're going to be talking to these renters all the time, and you're going to not, they're going to be calling you at 2:00 in the morning because they have a toilet that's overflowing. So I have 33 properties. I have not received one phone call in 10 years about an overflowing toilet. Right. So I think that is just a misconception. If you hire the property management company, the right property management company that you vetted, they take all the calls. They do all the work. I mean, you're paying them 7 to 10% to do it, but they do all the work. So there's no calls that come in. I don't have to ever look for a tenant. They screen all the tenants. They do the background checks on the tenants. They place the tenants. They do the security deposit. The only thing that I do is collect the checks. I pay the mortgage and I accept the rental check. That's what I do. And I think there is just this misconception when I tell people that I own 33 properties. They say, how can you do that? How much time do you have? How much time are you putting into that? Not any. The mortgage companies that I pay is automatic deducted from my bank account every month. And the money that I have from my rent is automatically comes into my account every month. That is the extent of my work on my rental portfolio. And I think that's the biggest misconception that people have out there.
Yeah. There's, and it only gets more with technology now. It's only becoming more simple to automate this process and not deal with the toilet, tenants, trash. Again, it's treating this like a business. Those who still deal with toilets, tenants, trash are those who are trying to do this on their own. And again, and Carl, in future videos, we're going to do how to underwrite a deal, and we'll show you actually how to put in the property management expense into your deal. So that again, it's just it's an expense item. It's part of the investment. And so in future video, look out for that. If we've already done that, we'll link it down below, exactly how to underwrite these deals so that you have room for things like this, so that you can own real estate to do the things you really want to do,
Right.
like sit on the beach or play golf or spend time with your family or
Yes.
support your church,
Yes.
right? The things that you're really doing this for. Carl, this has been the absolute A to Z to how to buy real estate and real estate out of state and start building your real estate portfolio. Huge value today, man. I'm pumped that we're going to continue the series and do more videos.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate you having me, brother.
Guys, we'll see you.